Hey everybody, welcome back to CuddlesRus. Today we're going to be diving into the world of permissions and everything you kind of need to know about them, how to set them up, what you can do to, alleviate some of the stress that it comes from having somebody live with you or, potentially setting up a guild base. So with that said, let's go ahead, let's jump on into it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Permissions. Like, it's really not that hard. You set the permissions, you're good to go, and you just set it and forget it, and you never really worry about it, right? And I understand, but there's a lot of nuances that can come along with putting permissions in so then people can access your base, whether you're online, offline, and anywhere else. So maybe you have a guild base and stuff like this, and like this is going to be one of the key factors that you're going to want to make sure that you're going to do when you're in those kind of scenarios. So one of the first things that we're going to notice is when we go to our permission list inside our subfeed console. Now, anybody that has co-owner access will be able to build. Anybody with associate access will be able to access anything that you just drop on the ground. Now, the default for any base materials that you put down on the floor, like boxes, machinery, or anything like this, will all come stacked with an associate tag. Okay. So anybody that's on your permission list that is an associate will be able to interact with those items every time that you put a new one down. So you do have to set up permissions individually. Now let's go take a look at what those look like. Okay, so let's start at machinery. Let's start at the basics, right? So anytime that you put down a machine, it's always gonna have general access for an associate. Okay. Now, when setting up a guild base, you may want to make these like guild access, but do keep in mind when you make a machine guild access, they have access to all of the materials on the circuit that you give them access to. Now, they won't be able to change the circuit in any way as long as they're not on your subfeed console. The subfeed console is very personal when it comes to your base and keeping it safe. So do keep that in mind. You don't want to give access to anybody to your subfeed console that you don't absolutely trust. Okay. But you can limit the amount of resources by simply changing the circuit, making a circuit so where that's the only thing that those machines have access to. So if you're offline and you're like, hey, listen, I need you to make fuel for my base, you can always put this stuff inside that inside a box or a couple of boxes that that circuit can have access to while they're making the fuel for you, or doing whatever they need to do in your base when you're offline or even if you're online. So do keep that in mind. It is a little tricky to start setting up, but once you start setting this up, you do not no longer have to give people access to your subfeed console to allow them to use your equipment or machines. So let's go look at boxes. So now that we're talking about boxes, I'm going to give you guys a rundown of how I personally run my boxes and a little bit of like ins and outs about my personal base and some of the suggestions that you can potentially use inside your own bases. All right. So what I did is I actually set up this little hallway for anything guild related. So anything guild related that they need to come and just grab something from, like I have battery boxes, welding torches, buggy parts, belts, survival tents, tools, miscellaneous armor, compactors, and stuff like this. Like naming the boxes has actually been a very big importance when it comes to, streamlining your base and allowing people just to see what they'll be able to grab from that chest at any given moment. But all these boxes are set up to guild access. So then that way, if the guild needs something, they can just run through this little hallway of mine and grab whatever they need to do whatever task they need to do. Okay. Now I do have, if you see here, we do have boxes outside. These boxes are used for mainly for Landsrad turn-ins and stuff like this. I do not open these boxes up to the general guild or public due to the fact that it would be an officer that would be giving you those materials if they need them. All right. Like ones and twos are fine, but if, I'm not trying to supply somebody with a full, 14K of materials to, unlock their Landsrad points. That's something that, they can do on their own. And we do provide a little bit of assistance. Okay. Now, these are, like I said, all is set to associate access. All the boxes on the floor are set to associate. and the only ones that are set to guild are in my little hallway here. So then that way there is a little semblance of a storage for people. Like if they're just stuck, they have an access point. Okay. Now let's go ahead. Let's talk about doors and what you can do to potentially set up in a vault for, your general storage. Okay. So now here's where it gets sticky. Because when you talk about doors and you talk about entryways and locking doors and entryways for people to have access to, there are a couple of key factors that you want to think about. One, a co-owner can get through any door that you place, no matter what. And you're probably like, no, it's locked to ownership. Like, you walk up to the door, you collect owner, and now only the owner can have access to that door. Yes. But anybody with a co-owner access with the build tool can break the door, get in the base, or get in the vault, or wherever you have it. And it doesn't stop them from being able to take whatever they want. Because of this limitation that they have with the building, they need to do something. Okay, because co-owner is just like an owner. Like you can't lock anything other than a box potentially, which is very hard to say like, okay, this is, my room or something like this. Because if anybody with malicious intent wants to do damage to your base, if they have the co-owner access, they have every right. They can go and destroy your sub-P console. They can go and destroy anything. And you're like, well, they can't really destroy my sub-P console. Actually, they can. Due to the fact that when you destroy a tile underneath any equipment or anything like to that nature, it will actually destroy whatever building part is on top of it. Okay. And will provide the materials on the bottom. Now, this does become an issue if you're sitting your sub-P console on a foundation block. Because if they destroy this foundation block, my sub-P console will be completely demolished. And my base will now be open to the public. Anybody will be able to raid it, no matter what permissions my box has on it, no matter what any box has on them. So, like making sure people have the right access level to your base is critical. And not to make sure that you put anybody on your sub-P console that you don't 100% trust, or just don't do it. I'm just going to say this right now. I don't put anybody as a co-owner. I only allow access to machinery based on the level of status. Okay. People that are on my sub-P console are officers and people that have taken a break from the game that are, living inside one of my storage units. So those are the only people that have access to my base on a general rule. So, because one thing I don't want is people to be able to come in here and go raid my vault of goodies, right? Because we store all of our stuff in here, and we just don't want people to have access to a lot of our little goodies, and like plastinium floor. Then we have, it doesn't really matter. Okay. But even these boxes are set to co-owner. So all of the boxes down here are set to co-owner access because of one thing. Okay. Doors. The doors themselves, if you're using these pentashield doors, if your power goes out in your base, those doors will go down. You will no longer have like a separation. So anybody on your sub-P console that is an associate will be able to raid those boxes. That's why I've changed mine all to co-owner. So the only people that have access to it are me and Mrs. Cuddles. If somebody needs access to it, we'll grab what they need and give it to them that way. But there's really no need for anybody to be a co-owner on your base other than the fact that they're helping you build, or you're sharing your base with your significant other, or in some sort of that degree. So I talked a lot about co-owner and the fact that they can just destroy whatever they want. Now, a co-owner can actually destroy your sub-V console outright. So one of the things that you can do to prevent a co-owner from destroying your sub-V and potentially sending you back years, months, decades, like I can't say decades because the game's only been out for a couple of months. So if you don't want them to set you back that far, you can just go ahead, put it on a rock formation that it's resting on. Okay. This rock formation will actually stop your sub-V console from being destroyed if they destroy the block or tile underneath it. Now, you will have to build in one of these rock formations into your base. It does look kind of cool sometimes, but they also can be kind of hard to work around. Okay. So with that said, let's go ahead, hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell if you want to know more, and leave a comment. If you have ever blown up a base, if you've ever, had somebody do it to you, or even potentially if you've done it to yourself, like leave it down in a comment. Let's try to have Funcom fix the fact that, a co-owner can actually blow up your sub-V console by destroying your foundation. And hopefully we can get that fixed, especially the walls too, right? We should have protected walls. Who knows? It's permissions coming soon video. But with that said, stay thirsty, my friends, and I will see you guys on Arrakis.